their car was probably right here. Right here.
What happens to survivors of terror attacks in America after the news cycle moves on?
The car just drove into people.
Who advocates for them? Who pays their medical bills? And why do so many survivors need to crowdsource money on platforms like GoFundMe?
There's just been complication after complication.
I haven't worked since the accident.
Mentally, I was just a lot stronger before this.
Coming up to the one-year anniversary of the Unite the Right rally, it occurred to me that I knew very little about the specific people who were hurt that day and how they were doing. So I started making calls to Charlottesville.
Let's not hit this car. So I broke a right rib, I broke 2 parts of my spine, and I broke both legs.
If I squeeze on you down here, is that hurt?
It's right there. Not horrible, but yeah, that hurts.
On August 12th, a man drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing 1 woman. Star was one of the people he hit. Doctors had to operate on her right leg, but there were complications and an infection, which meant more surgeries.
If my leg won't get totally straight, am I gonna have like a permanent limp or?
Doesn't necessarily lead to a permanent limp. It may change the way you walk, meaning that people have to compensate a little bit when they walk.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't want to do a 5th surgery. It's already really pushing it to go back to work by January, and no one's paying my rent anymore, no one's paying my electric bill. So that's really scary. Yeah.
I haven't worked since the accident.
Tay wasn't part of the Unite the Right counter-protest, but that day she and her sister were running errands in town, and they were detoured onto the street of the attack. They were directly hit by the driver.
And my head just went forward so hard.
The sisters were brought to the University of Virginia Hospital, which offered free emergency care to victims. But after that weekend, the free treatment stopped.
I can't pay a bill. I can't work. I can't drive for too long.
Can you get the salt, pepper out?
I need help taking care of my 9-year-old child because she helps mommy now, you know?
Why don't you go watch the game or play the game or watch TV, baby?
Tay was eventually diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome, a kind of chronic pain that sometimes develops after a traumatic injury. Symptoms include burning, throbbing, swelling, spasms, and tremors.
You miss me just being able to get up and go?
Yeah.
I miss it too, girl.
Do you have any kind of long-term disability insurance through your last job?
No, my job did not offer that, so I did not.
This is really common. Only around 1 in 3 American workers has long-term disability insurance to cover them if they're out of work for more than a few months.
But the GoFundMes have helped enormously. So one raised $7,400, and I believe the other was $32,000. So I've been lucky.
In all, around $1.4 million was raised on GoFundMe for victims in Charlottesville, and that's on top of the smaller amounts raised on similar pages. Up until last summer, GoFundMe was actually advertising itself as the #1 site for terror victim fundraising, though the wording on the website's now changed. Which got me thinking, why has this become almost standard practice after terror attacks?
Money is definitely a stress factor and a fact that I don't know when I'm gonna be able to make my own money again.
At the time of the attack, Tay was uninsured and she didn't have a primary care doctor.
I couldn't, healthcare is expensive.
Since August 12th, she's had to stop working and she's gone on Medicaid. She's seeing doctors, but she says she's still struggling to find the specialist she needs. Like anyone involved in a car crash, Tay has also looked to car insurance for financial coverage. But in this case, there's a hitch.
He intentionally ran into a crowd, he intentionally hit a car, he intentionally tried to kill people, so the insurance not covering that. They don't pay for stuff people do intentionally. They pay for accidents.
James Fields Jr., the alleged driver behind the car attack, had car insurance. But in the course of reporting this story, I learned that his car insurance denied coverage for the injuries he caused, on the grounds that he caused them intentionally. That's actually standard industry practice. Car insurance is for car accidents, not intentional attacks. And that's to prevent people from deliberately crashing their car to get payouts. But when cars are used as weapons of mass violence, the standard policy has unfortunate effects.
I feel like my PTSD has gotten a lot better. Like I used to struggle with like driving and like being at stop signs, to like if I look in my rearview mirror and I see somebody like driving very fast behind me, that would trigger me, you know what I mean?
I've had to learn how to cope with these feelings and these thoughts and not allow it to affect me.
It's not like I feel like racism came about after August 12th. It's always been around. I just never paid attention to it. Like even if I would encounter it, I would know how to respond and just kind of just let it roll off my shoulder. Mentally, I was just a lot stronger before this.
There are government agencies to help survivors of terrorism. In 1988, the Department of Justice started the Office of Victims of Crime, which runs something called the Anti-Terrorism Emergency Assistance Program. Individuals make compensation claims at the state level. In Virginia, the Virginia Victims Fund covers things like medical costs, lost wages, temporary housing, prescriptions, and mental health counseling. But the payments max out at $25,000, and the fund is considered a payer of last resort, which means that victims need to spend down their health insurance and car insurance and even their GoFundMe earnings before they're eligible, which all goes to say that the system is tangled and really difficult to navigate.
The victims are stuck in dealing with a pretty complicated bureaucracy. To my knowledge, as of last week, only one victim has received compensation to date from the Victims' Compensation Fund.
The Virginia Victims Fund wouldn't confirm numbers and would only say that applications are being processed. In the meantime, the local Charlottesville Area Community Foundation has raised over $300,000 for victims. It's helped Star and Tay with non-medical costs, things like food and rent.
But eventually, that money will run out.
I've budgeted enough so I'll be okay through January.
What happens if you don't start work at the start of January?
I'm screwed. I don't know how I'm paying rent. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm very, very scared about that.
I needed to come because as much as I wasn't down here when it happened, it's a big part of my life because they're my daughters, and I had not been here since it happened, and I felt like I really needed to come. Wow. Yeah, this is pretty tough.
Tay and Micah haven't been back to the site of the attack, but their mother wanted to see it.
I can see the girls not being able to come right now. It's kind of hard.
I had to get used to this body of mine because I can't do things the way I used to do them. I can't see ahead.
I think what has helped me most is to try to get back to the normal things of my life. Having conversations about goals and plans and my future instead of this tragedy.
Never in my life have I seen a rally other than TV. I stopped and took pictures, of all the people just standing there marching and holding up their signs. Who would have known,